This episode of Living Corporate is brought to you by Blind. Blind is a safe, trusted community of more than 5 million verified professionals. Head over to teamblind.com to get the latest insights into salaries, company reviews, and interview experiences at thousands of companies worldwide. What's up, y'all? It's Zach with Living Corporate, and yo, man, listen, I don't know if you've taken the time to pause from whatever you're doing and go to the new website, but that thing is Fye. F-Y-E, Fye. It's so cool, man. Like, I'm so excited about the interface. It captures really the dimensionality of what we do, right? As a media company, we're not just a single podcast. We have multiple podcasts. We have multiple web shows. We have a blogging series. We're actually about to launch a new research series with Blind. That's right. We're about to launch a new research series with Blind. That's coming real soon. And, you know, we also have web shows, you know what I'm saying? We also host Twitter spaces for the Access Point. We're doing all kinds of things out here, you know what I'm saying? And so it's important that we have a platform that reflects all of what we do. Not only that, but we have a job board. That's right. We have a job board. That's why you're hearing all these ads, right? But these are not your typical ads. These are placements with brands that I truly trust and leaders that I respect. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if y'all remember, but like once upon a time, we had a little deal with some company, I can't remember, but you heard me reading ads, but I didn't really want to do them ads, y'all. I'm gonna be honest with you. That was just something we were trying out to see. You know, they took out a flyer on us, we took out a flyer on them. I'm not really trying to do ads for companies I don't really know and leaders I can't really touch. You know what I'm saying? So I'm really excited about the fact that we have just something new, right? We have something new. The newsletter is new, all right? The newsletter is new, all right? So I'm just hitting y'all with a bunch of announcements, right? So past few years, we've built a subscriber list of thousands, all right? And we just sent out a newsletter, but it hasn't really been branded. You know what I'm saying? It hasn't really been branded. But I'm excited because this next newsletter that y'all going to get next week is going to be called Meeting Minutes. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, notes from the meeting, you take minutes. So that's the play. I'm really excited about just having something just standard, you know what I'm saying? In terms of, have you checked out the latest meeting minutes? You know what I mean? Because that newsletter that we have, the meeting minutes, has a bunch of fire stuff in there. It has our latest conversations. It has our latest job opportunities. It has our latest thought leadership. You know what I mean? It's just a great thing to subscribe to just to keep up with what's going on. And I feel like, you know, branding it meeting minutes helps for it to be its own, you know, piece of content. You know what I'm saying? So make sure, if you haven't already, to check out, to be subscribed, to log in, create a profile on Living Corporate, living-corporate, please say the dash.com. And the reason why you want to create a profile is not just because you get a bunch of access to our entire library for free. Not just because of that. Not just because you get access to our entire job board, which is getting added, updated with new incredible opportunities from diverse, equitable, and inclusive organizations, or at least organizations that strive to be diverse, equitable, and inclusive. But because when you go and you create a profile on Living Corporate and you select your interests in terms of like, oh, maybe you're interested in mentorship, or you're interested in understanding how to support Black women better at work, or just how to be a better ally in general, how to grow as a leader, you're then on your homepage going to get curated content against the things that you selected. You know what I'm saying? So if you're interested in leadership development and being coached, guess what? You're going to get content from the leadership range. You know what I'm saying? If you're interested in self-care and mental wellness and healing, you're probably going to get a combination of Liberated Love Notes and The Break Room. You know what I mean? Let's say you're an early career professional and you're just trying to figure out how to navigate this space. You're probably going to get content recommendations from the Access Point. You see what I'm saying? So it's going to get deeper and more complex. It's going to grow. A lot of technology in the background. I can't tell you how excited I am. This was an arduous journey, you know what I'm saying, to stand up this website. Any business owner can tell you that building a new website or creating a new website, especially when it's all custom, it's from scratch, it's not a bunch of templates and stuff like that. This thing took months to build, you know what I'm saying, from scratch. And anybody will tell you that that is not easy work. There's a bunch of rigmarole involved, you know what I mean? But I'm thankful and I'm excited. So I hope you appreciate the fact that I'm asking you to check out living-corporate, please say the dash.com, or livingcorporate.co, livingcorporate.org, livingcorporate.net, livingcorporate.tv, livingcorporate.us.en, you know what I'm saying? We got all the living corporates except livingcorporate.com. Still working on that, for real. I'm still working on that. Livingcorporate.com out in Australia, I see y'all. Okay, y'all think I don't see y'all, but I see y'all, and y'all ain't even like really moving weight like that. You know, that's the thing. Like, you haven't been on the corner in years. I see y'all. Y'all just taking up the domain. You know, I'm gonna get that domain though. Trust. I said a couple years ago, we're gonna get big enough, we're gonna get that domain. I'm getting that domain soon, believe me. Anyway, all this being said, hopefully you hear the excitement in my voice. I'm hearing it as like in real time, like, wow, I might need to calm down a little bit. I'm not gonna calm down. I'm excited because the guest we have today is Erica Johnson. Erica Johnson is the head of DEI at Chime, which is a fintech company. We're going to talk a little bit about that in our conversation. But I want to talk a little bit about Erica real quick on the side, because she's someone I've gotten to know through my 9-to-5 job. And it's just really interesting, like, when you meet clients and then they kind of become just, I don't want to say we're friends, so I don't want to be overly presumptuous, because friends is a heavy word. I would love for us to be friends one day. I know for a fact that we're cool and we make a phenomenal team. And I just appreciate her humility, her accessibility, and her passion to try to figure out and navigate how to really make impact in this space. We talk a lot about a lot of things. In fact, I'm not even going to do all that. I just want to try to listen to the conversation. But before we do that, all right, I want you to tap in with Tristan. See you in a minute. Corporate is brought to you by Doximity. Doximity is committed to fostering an inclusive and diverse work environment where differences are valued, practices are equitable, and employees experience a sense of belonging that allows them to bring their full, authentic selves daily. As medicine's largest network, there's an elevated level of responsibility to everything we do. We don't take that responsibility lightly and are committed to working towards a more equitable world inside and beyond our virtual office walls. So if you want to learn more about Doximity, go to your app store and type in DOXIMITY. Again, that's DOXIMITY. When you're building a culture of belonging, every word counts. That's why Textio brings the world's most advanced language insights into your hiring and employer brand content. Our industry-leading approach to artificial intelligence and machine learning provides the tools needed to find more diverse candidates. In short, Textio builds more equitable workspaces, guiding businesses and writing more inclusive job posts. And we're building on that success by bringing even more products to the market for all people who share our belief that language matters. Words have power, and at Textio, we harness that power to increase the access and availability of value-driven work for everyone.
What's going on, Living Corporate? It's Tristan, and I want to thank you for tapping back in with me as I provide some tips and advice for professionals. Today, let's talk about what upskilling means and how you do it. Upskilling is another way of saying learning new skills, but with a twist. Upskilling is being driven by advances in technology and living more effectively in a digital world. It's no secret that new technologies, like artificial intelligence, are rapidly changing the way we work. While technology creates jobs, it has also led to the disappearance of them. To master the skills you need in this changing workplace, you must be deliberate in what you learn. Here are a few tips for employees on how to upskill. Be strategic. Identify what skills will be the most valuable in your job, workplace, or industry in the future. Technology is moving faster than the vast majority can be trained. Stay one step ahead. Honestly evaluate your strengths and weaknesses. A top performer has self-awareness. Know your weaknesses and work on them with humility. Ask for what you want. As an employee, you're in an advantageous position right now. The workforce is in flux and top talent is hard to attract and retain. Now is a perfect time to ask your employer for more responsibility or learning opportunities. But before you do, Identify areas that will benefit your employer, as well as help you progress along your career path. Upskilling is much easier with a plethora of courses available online, and many of those are free. Whether you want to take a professional certification course, a class for fun, or learn something altogether new, online learning is great. Coursera is a great online choice for professional development and course variety. Coursera's roots are in science, technology, and math. However, now you can find more than 2,700 courses in almost every field. It's an excellent choice for professional upskilling. LinkedIn Learning is for professionals who want day-to-day skill building. LinkedIn offers short classes to get you up to speed quickly. A lot of the classes are less than an hour and are designed as teasers but with a ton of information. Udemy suits the niche learner. Udemy instructors come from different backgrounds and experiences, and that is what makes it great. If your interest is making yourself more marketable in the future, take a peek at several job postings to see what companies want. Use that as a starting point for which online classes are worth taking to fulfill your long-term goals. This tip was adapted from an email sent by Ashley Stahl and brought to you by Tristan of Layfield Resume Consulting. Check us out on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Layfield Resume, or connect with me, Tristan Layfield, on LinkedIn.
This episode of Living Corporate is brought to you by Blind. Blind is a trusted community of more than 5 million verified professionals. On Blind, professionals connect and have honest discussions about salaries and what it's really like to work at or interview with a company. You can also join your private company channel to have a candid and safe conversation with your coworkers about what's really going on. And because it's anonymous, you can be honest and trust what you read. Check out teamblind.com to get the latest insights and the answers to your workplace questions. Living Corporate is brought to you by Doximity. Over 90% of graduating medical students join Doximity to use our tools before earning their doctoral degree. As medicine's largest network, there's an elevated level of responsibility to everything we do. We don't take that responsibility lightly and are committed to working towards a more equitable world inside and beyond our virtual office walls. You want to learn more about Doximity? Make sure you go to your app store, type in DOXIMITY. That's DOXIMITY. Erica, it has been a long time coming. Welcome to the show. How are you?
I am doing okay. I'm going to be honest and say I'm doing okay. I think it's a tough thing to say good these days, but I'm finding the moments and finding the joy in the moment. So okay, I'm middle right now. Yeah, for sure.
I'm probably lower okay, like not in the middle of okay, kind of like trending towards not okay, because the world is on fire. So, with all that being said, let's just start easy. How did you get to Chime, and why did you choose Chime?
Yeah, so I got to Chime. I learned about Chime from my amazing mentor and support system, Beth Steinberg, who leads talent and people for Chime. I learned about Chime from her, and then I learned about this great opportunity from her. But when I learned even more so about Chime and dug in a bit deeper on what Chime was accomplishing, it was this great company that had it was very mission driven and was really looking to address some of the things that, I consider to be things I want to be addressing in the world. I identify as a Black lesbian. And so as a Black woman who's gay, there are a lot of inequities that I face, particularly in financial systems, current financial systems. And I know that Chime is interested in creating more equity in our financial systems for our members. And that's something that I could get behind. And so the combination of that and Beth Steinberg letting me know that they were going to be building their DEB function was a great opportunity, I felt, to get behind, involved with the company and contribute to a company that was doing this work, but that was also starting off this strategy. I'm a bit of a builder myself. And so how do I influence this early as we start building this foundation for DEB, or DEI as some other people call it, at Chime. And then, you dig in the next layer of Chime, and it's like, okay, Chime has such a diverse member base. We want to build a company that can support that. We are member obsessed as a company. And so how do we do that? And that was all sounded like, kind of the right match of things. And I found myself here and in this role, and now here on this podcast talking about it.
Come on now. Like to that end, I think it's interesting. Like I'm in this space. You and I talk. We have various layers of relationship, which I'm actually really excited about.
Yes.
But that like at my 9 to 5 job, like I pivoted away from being internal DEI to more like a go to market sales delivery type role, like closer to the cash register. But I'm still in this space because of what I'm doing, what we're building at Living Corporate. And I just have to say, like how nervous are you about keeping your job like for more than 18 months? Like it's so common. We see these organizations, they get excited, they'll bring in typically oftentimes a Black woman, often other times a white woman. Another conversation for another day. The point is these Black women come in, they're promised the world, and then 12 months later, 18 months later, maybe on the rarest of occasions 24 months later, they're gone. And I just see it's like a revolving door. It's giving exhaustion.
Yeah.
I'd love to understand, like, how do you see yourself in just like the reality of this work, right? Like how, do you manage the stress or pressure, or do you feel anxious about that at all?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I hear you on that. I definitely hear you. I've been in this role for 18 months and still going and feeling good and making progress. I think, in our little sync before this, we just talked about some wins we've been having in my team. And so still feeling energized. But I do think that it for sure can be challenging work. I think that we definitely, especially as Black women, at times can take on a caretaking role. And that balance sometimes doesn't really serve us if we're not doing a lot of self-care. And so, I try to read some folks that have been doing this work and doing it a long time. When you think about activists or folks that have been in changing systematic or making impacts on systematic issues. Like think about Angela Davis. She's been doing it for like so long. And what does she do? She calls it radical self-care. But really, we have to be caring for ourselves in this. I think that's more important. I know colleagues that I have that do DI period, but particularly colleagues that I have that are Black women. We have conversations where we are, needing to ensure that we're taking care of our health foremost, and we know what we need to do around that. I think from a practicality standpoint, logistically, I think the other part is this role can sometimes feel as though it belongs to one person because you have that title, or it belongs to that team because that team has it. But I say this in our Chime onboarding, I say it in all the meetings that I have. This work belongs to all of us. And so as an individual, I need to make sure that I'm holding everyone accountable, myself, but all of our leaders, all of our chimers, all of that kind of stuff. And then also, I think we need to ensure that everyone feels responsible in it, right? It's not just one person. It's impossible for just to be one person. It's impossible for just be one team. This touches so many things. There's so many layers that we need to really consider what it looks like for everyone to be involved in this work. So, yes.
It really actually kind of leads me to my next question, just about the landscape of our workplace equity today. I mean, we have an increasingly white supremacist, Christo-fascist government, or rather people in power, a small minority of people executing extremely Christo-fascist things, legislation. We have, I don't know, we have a political landscape that would seem that continues to lean and really grow more and more right wing. And I don't know, we got the same tech bros in charge who haven't really learned anything. It feels bleak, is my point. I'm curious, what if anything gives you hope at Chime? I think you're a bit of more of an optimist than I am, based on the history of our conversations. Yeah. I'd love to hear more about like what's from your perspective in your world, like what gives you hope.
Yeah, I mean, I do. I'm a Sagittarius. We're optimistic, or we try to be optimistic. I think a lot gives me hope. I mean, I can understand there's a lot happening in the world, and it's hard. I mean, I got on this podcast saying I'm okay, which is, not what I like to be saying. I love to be saying I'm great and amazing, but it's hard to say that with a lot of what's happening in the world, and I'd be sort of disconnected or detached if I didn't consider those to be, major challenges and things that can keep you up at night and can make things feel a bit hopeless. But I would say that one of my favorite quotes is "Hope is discipline." You have to be disciplined in your hope, and so I think that um, for my aspect, it's really looking at I love to look back at what we've done and what change we have created, right? Even amongst the challenges that are being put in our way right now, there are times that things have been overcome. And I would say that in the work that I'm doing, I am looking back at the change that I've, been able to make at Chime in partnership with all of the leaders and chimers. Together we've created some change. We've made changes in some of the things that we're doing, and we're putting in programs, and we're having the tough discussions, right, around what it looks like for us to address, diversity, equity, and belonging in this company. So I would say that I think being around people and seeing this change, seeing them learn and grow, evolve, because we as humans do that. When we're presented most of the time, we were hopefully doing that when we're presented new information. I would say that gives me hope a lot of times, even when things are bleak. And I think the things that I've been able to do, in this time, like, I think we're up against some really big challenges, societal challenges, and I appreciate the fact that I'm able to work with this company and these leaders in this company to address that for our employees and for our members. What does it look like for us to stand up and use our voice as a company to say these things are not aligned with the values that we have in this company, and how can we support our employees and members through it? I think are all things. I can go on and on. We have a great group of employee resource groups that meeting with the leads from that, meeting with people who are so driven and feeling so empowered to move past the challenges and find ways in which we can all belong and feel included, and find equity. That keeps me motivated, and it gives me hope. It gives me hope. But I got to look back at that, especially in moments when things that are happening in this world are happening. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to that end, right? Like we're looking around and we're seeing like this retraction in the market. We're seeing teams, groups, entire departments being let go, in the name of organizations trying to shore up and get center back on, what they believe is critical for their survival as we approach what many believe is going to be a recession. I'm curious. Do you think that DEI as a corporate function will ever not be the first thing cut in seasons like these?
Well, I hope that is the case. I've been in people functions, DEI, HR for some time, and I've seen, how companies that better understand the importance of these roles and the importance of how they impact the business and the bottom line make different decisions in those cases. But that's where we have to get to. It's an educating of leadership, it's an education of the market of the importance of this role and how that ultimately benefits the business in the future, right? The growth of the business and things like that. You are known to be more, all of the stats, and I can't think of all the stats off the top of my head because it's been a day, but I think, all the stats show, you get more revenue, you have happier employees, you have all of these things that basically create better businesses, more successful businesses when diversity, equity, and belonging are present. So when leaders understand that, it is not the first thing to go. I think when leaders might be doing it from a more performative standpoint of just getting DEI in place because they felt like that was what everybody was doing, that might lead to a different outcome there. And that's when I do find that to be disappointing. It's disappointing. But I hope that we're finding our way to a better place where that's not the case.
It's interesting because, yeah, I mean, look, let's just keep it going. It's Pride Month. Still, we're recording this in
It is
June,
2 more days.
and here's the thing: even if we were recording this in like August, we're gonna talk about. I want to talk about this. There's so much going on right now regarding like legislative undermining and, frankly, like the attempted erasure of trans and queer personhood in America. Besides putting rainbow flags on their logos, what else? What other bold, impactful actions can organizations take to stand up for their queer employees in this season? And what is Chime doing?
Yeah, so I think besides the rainbow logos, I think it's important that they're doing the work behind those logos, right? Which is really centering the current struggles of this community. This is a very uh, difficult time for this community because of what you just mentioned, the legislation and just the erasure of this identity and experience, or the attempt of it. It's not going anywhere, but it is attempting. Folks are attempting to do so. And I think the most important things that companies can do right now is lend their voice to what should be equality in this country and in this world, no matter how you identify, right? And so I think, are you putting the voices and the needs of that community first in how you're addressing it? And first, that means talking to the community. Sometimes people are very quick to be like, we know how to fix this. Or we know how to help you. We're going to help you with this. Why don't you ask members of the community how you can help right now? What are the things that you can be doing? And that doesn't necessarily mean going to your employees to ask that, but there are lots of folks, activists, organizers in the communities looking and needing resources and help in order to move their work forward. And have you spoken to them and asked them for what they need resource wise that you can ultimately create change? So I think, one, understanding that, where to go and where to learn and where to listen. And I think practically, like within our organizations, are we doing everything we can to ensure that members of this community feel that they're in a safe space? Do they feel like they can be authentic? Do they feel supported right now? Are you standing up for that? But are you also making sure your benefits are seeing to the needs of this community right now? Are you seeing that they have the supports mentally and physically to withstand what is happening right now? And so we've done that. Chime has done that. We've worked very closely with our people ops org and our benefits org to make sure that we have that, and we're giving people even more access to things from a mental perspective, and also from a mental health perspective, and also from a physical health perspective. And we used our voice to sign on to like the Business Coalition for the Equality Act. What else can we be doing? There's probably tons more, and we're going to keep doing it. We're going to find what that is. We're going to talk to communities, keep having these conversations, and keep helping wherever we can.
Let's talk a little bit further about like when it comes to like queer identity. Let's talk about intersectionality. Like, there's so often, and I say this as someone who is not queer, but I recognize the dozens upon dozens of conversations we've had on Living Corporate, as well as I've had privately, that often Black and brown folks are the first to be erased within like queer narratives and stories. I'm curious, what does it look like to center Black and brown people, particularly Black and brown disabled queer folks, in storytelling, not just for Pride, but just as we talk about identity, period? And like, what does that look like historically at Chime?
I think it looks like us really taking into account when, and again, I love that you said not just for Pride. Pride is a great month. I had an amazing Pride weekend last weekend filled with my community, and it was so healing and so wonderful for me. But this is my life every day, and this is the lives of these communities every day. So it's not just for Pride. So I think first, think about this outside of Pride is one thing. But I think two is like take into account what the struggles are of this community, particularly for those that are being left out of the stories. I think a lot of times when you look at historically what has happened, taking into the context and history of what's happening, there are people being left out of this movement. There are people that are left out. Their part in this movement is not being acknowledged in the same way, and also understanding that compounding, that intersectionality, that compounding of oppression means that if we actually addressed what was happening for those, particularly if we talk about Black trans community, if we look at communities that are compounded with the oppression, and we actually look at addressing that, we would actually fix that for everyone else as well, right? If we make sure that those that have the least among us have what they need, then great. Those who have even more than they have will have what they need, right? So are we looking at that? Are we ensuring that we're looking at those that are impacted the most among us? And I would say at Chime, everyone knows that Erica loves to talk about intersectionality. If we're talking about approaching something, have we looked at it from an intersectional lens? Are we ensuring that we're considering all Chimers and how Chimers, we are not all one thing or one box, right? We are a lot of different things. And so are we looking at particularly how our Black queer Chimers are being impacted? I was just watching a clip the other day, and particularly right now, there's very little space for Black lesbians right now. There's not a big voice for that right now. When you're trying to find a place to find that community, how are we helping Chimers find community for those that intersection of their identity? So for me, it's really important, and that we tell those stories. So those are the stories we share if we're going to be talking about things, and we're going to be talking about things outside of Pride. Or are we addressing all of those things? Are we partnering, and are we giving a voice for those in need of to be seen and heard? Are we doing that outside of Pride? Are we doing that for the communities that we think are not normally heard? Those are the questions we ask ourselves.
I'm kind of to your point around like us being multiple things at the same time, and like not just ever being one thing, rejecting binary contexts or prejudice. Hey, Emery, can you close the door? Close the door.
Hey, Emery.
Close the door from the doorknob. There you go. Okay, love you. Bye-bye. All right. This is not live. All right. He buzzed in here. She said, boom, hey.
Hey.
You heard it too,
right? To be having a good day. I'm taking that energy with me for the rest of the day.
She is a spirit. Okay. Oh, great. This is gonna be good. Look. Listen. You and I, again, we have offline conversations. Like,
yes.
I'm often called radical or whatever for fairly, from my perspective, basic concepts or ideas around achieving equity at work. I'm curious if you had similar experiences, and like, what do you think it looks like to normalize imagining actions beyond the performative theater that we often see out here?
Yeah, I think if similar experiences, yes, I am at times question about my approach to this work, to what it looks like for us to move towards equality and equity and belonging in the way that I think a lot of us envision it. But I do think it's really a time. I think it's an opportunity to educate people on like what they might be considering radical. What does that look like? Is that a challenging change? Is that challenging our current concepts, and is it moving us towards change? And so I would say helping people understand that right now it feels maybe different for you because you don't understand, you're not clear on another person's experience. This is why storytelling is so important. You don't fully understand what it will take for us to create change in this world. And really focusing on that whenever people are like, oh, that's too much. That's too much. Okay, well, what does it look like for us to create spaces where we can challenge norms? Because norms is what kind of has us in this current situation, right? And so we're going to have to move past that, and we're going to have to imagine something different. And what does it look like to move from like that what is intention? What is your intention? Because a lot of people have good intention. What is it going to take to move from that intention to actually doing action and impact? It's going to take more than what we're doing right now, and challenging people around that. So if that answers your question, does that answer your question?
It does. Okay. It does. Now look, I would be remiss if we didn't talk about this SCOTUS decision to roll back Roe v. Wade. First, I'd love to give you space for how you're processing this today, and then I'd like to know, in light of other organizations offering to pay for travel expenses through insurance companies, and there's other things that folks are doing, organizations are trying to figure that out. I'm curious, what is Chime doing in light of this decision?
Yeah, I think that's why I got on and said I'm okay. I think it's hard I think it's real hard to be good right now. I think it's hard. The ruling was devastating. We had some heads up that this was coming. But that doesn't make the reality any easier. It's angering, it's infuriating, it's saddening, it's scary. It's scary. I think that's a huge part of it. And as a person who identifies as a Black woman, gay, like all of these things, I know that this decision will impact those communities most, and that's really hard. Honestly, I'll say, sorry. Whoa, got a little emotional there. It's a difficult conversation right now. It's a difficult conversation, and I would say, Pride Weekend gave me a time to take a little minute to be with my community, and then you show up on Monday, and it's still there. That there is a certain subset of human beings that exist in this country with you who do not agree or see your humanity. And you don't see a way to actually get to that with them. And so what does it look like for us to address this in a larger sense? There's a lot to do. And it also feels like there's a lot of work to do right now, right? So that feels heavy. I will say, what has Chime done? What I appreciate is that our leadership team and all of our Chimers have quickly been able to address this as far as how it's impacting our Chimers right now, which is simply, we believe in equity and equality. We believe that everyone should have the access and the autonomy and the privacy to make their own healthcare decisions, and those healthcare decisions should be made by them and their doctor, and no one else, and they should have access to that. So what are we doing as far as that's concerned? Well, we're reviewing our benefits to ensure that we make any necessary updates to that, to ensure that we continue to give our employees the necessary coverage for that. And we're also looking at what it looks like for us to cover travel for them to get to places where they don't have the access, or where that access might have been taken from them. And so if it's not available to them, we're going to do everything we can to make sure that's happening. And we're also going to acknowledge that this is a difficult time for our employees. And we're going to try to provide spaces for them to talk about that, to discuss that, to express their frustration and their fears, because that's important too. We don't get to just act like this isn't happening, and that what people are feeling right now is not impacting their day-to-day work and their day-to-day lives.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's tough, right? I think about, and we talked about this too, it's like, this is this really, really scary season where everybody, to be clear, but certainly historically marginalized folks, more specifically Black and brown women, Black and brown trans women, just continue to have their rights hollowed out. But then you see these government institutions that continue to shore up authority and power. And you see corporations who, because of their economic position and their role as job creators, their influence continues to grow. But again, the worker, the individual, kind of continues to sit here, just stuck, right? We gotta, everybody can't work at Chime, right?
Yeah,
everybody can't.
Very true.
Everybody can't work at these places to get the care that they need. In fact, when you look at some of the states impact, or that are going to be most immediately impacted, as you look at the news, these are places that tech is starting to get to, but Folks are not out here targeting Jackson, Mississippi for talent.
Right.
Folks are not out here, targeting right Little Rock, Arkansas for talent or whatever the case is. So, it's challenging. It's funny here. We sent these questions in advance. I asked this question and somebody came here. I accepted the edit. I don't know who came and said this. So my question was, what advice, as we wrap up, what advice do you have for white tech bros? And then somebody came here and said, what advice do you have for people from marginalized communities? Let me tell you something, Chime. Let me tell y'all something. I love y'all, right? I got love for Erica. Y'all are silly for this. Non-marginalized communities. I'm going to stick with my question. That was funny. Who wrote that?
Well, okay. Let me say something. So go back to your other part about people, about the companies and so forth. I want to answer something. I want to add. I want to add 2 cents. I want to add 2 cents on that.
No. So it's sad because one, like the Chimes of the world, Momentum's of the world, other organizations that are providing these benefits, like everybody can't work there just by sheer reality. And then two, when you look at like geographically where the most historically marginalized people are being impacted, like it's in places where tech has not yet really like broke ground, right? So like the Jackson, Mississippi's of the world, like these historically very segregated, like really just harshly, like a strong history of oppression and segregation and disenfranchisement. Like those are the folks that are really going to continue to be impacted by this.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
If you, it's like if you don't have a college degree, or if you don't know how to, if you don't have access, then to these scant few companies that are going to provide these benefits, what do you do?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I want to answer that mostly because I felt you on that. Like I felt you on like this because we might have had a conversation at one point that said, what happens to folks that don't work for these companies? And I heard that, and I think it's its own challenge. Like there is 2 things. We are asking companies to step in the role of what should be likely things that are government, things that we have all agreed to under this large community of the United States, as how we're operating, should be cared for. And we're asking companies to step in for that. And so, yes, I think it's a challenge if we're talking about folks that don't work for these companies. So I think the other part that companies can do is find the right partners in which they can help still support on another level, right? And I think we're doing that at Chime, looking at what does it look like to have partners that address this or helping to address this outside of our company. That is necessary. And what does it look like for us to, use our voice? We're a successful tech company. What does it look like for us to sign on to the Don't Ban Equality with a lot of other tech companies and a lot of other successful companies that say, this is not okay with us. This is not okay with us. And if we are going to be able to exist in this space, we want everyone to know that, if we are existing in this world in which this is happening, we're not going to sit here and be quiet about that. And we're going to use the resources that we have to, maybe we can't, in this case, these folks are not employed with Chime, but we can use some of those resources to work with, folks on the ground and working with organizations that are finding ways to support those individuals. So I want to say that because I know, and it is, what the tech companies and the very successful companies have all stepped up and done what they felt needed to be done for their employees. And I think that's, great to see, especially right now. And at the same time, we know that so many are being left behind in that. So I think all companies need to ask themselves what else they're doing besides that. And we're asking ourselves that. So
man, sound man, he gonna put some air horns right here. It's gonna be crazy. It's gonna be like, it's gonna be dope. Watch. That was a phenomenal answer. Yo, I don't really crank out the air horns that much these days. Not because of any real reason, just because I don't really be, but man, that was a fire answer. So yes, shout out to, I love that. Because yes, leaving folks behind, it's scary. Like it's a scary season. And I think it's weird. Like if you're in this season and you don't feel some sense of like anger or despair or just loss or confusion or what, like, then I don't know. Like I'd have to check if you're alive, because it's like And I think about people that look like me. I think about my own family. I think about people who live in Mississippi. I think of, like, my family is from there. I think about, it's tough. Like, it's tough to, it's like, to say it's a tough season is such an understatement. Okay. Now look, and we know, because you be running, you got back to back. So I got this last question. And I'm gonna say the way I wrote it.
You ask it however you want to ask it, and I will answer it.
Thank you. So here's the thing. Like, I'm looking on Twitter and I see that crazy rant by that CEO of Coinbase, and I've seen some other, like, similar rants from, like, these crypto tech bros and just tech bros in general. It's like, wow, y'all are really making, like, y'all, like, I don't want to generalize all of y'all, but y'all are really making it really easy for me. Like, y'all are looking really bad out here. And at the same time, I recognize, like, for every nut job, there are also, like, a nice contingency of people who, and, like, this is not even an ad, shout out to the founders of Chime, like, who actually are trying, like, they're interested, like, they want to figure it out.
For sure.
Like, what advice do you have, like, for those tech bros who are trying to figure out something around just employee engagement and or DEI, DEB? Like, what would be some of, like, your initial steps you'd give them?
Yeah, I think it's and yes, we have seen what I think is happening out of fear and discomfort. What we're seeing happen is out of, in my opinion, and people can disagree with that, I think the rantings of certain CEOs or things about this work or employee engagement or caring about your employee or the well-being of your employees and whether they feel, seen, heard, cared for, and that are there to be do their best work authentically, is that this is not the norm. We've had many, many, many years and years, especially as tech has grown into this industry that's grown into, in which certain identities and certain viewpoints, point of views, and certain experiences were centered. And so now we're talking about not centering them in the same way. And so that discomfort and that fear is causing certain folks to react in different ways. Some are acting out in, ways that we've seen on Twitter. I think others are trying to go in and understand what they're not seeing. And so for those folks, I don't know how to help the folks that are acting out right now. I think when they're ready to go in, we can talk about it. But the folks that are going in, it's just to understand that this is not what is happening right now, is just a not centering of your experience, and that you are used to the centering of your experience. And that because of that, it feels uncomfortable. It feels like you don't know. You don't feel like you know enough. You don't want to say the wrong thing. All of that can be true. And at the same time, the things that we are tackling are really about them having a level of vulnerability about what they don't experience in the world. Like what I experience in the world, and we've had these conversations within Chime, what I experience in the world as a Black lesbian, as a woman who is gay, is a Black woman who's gay, is very different than what our founders have experienced in the world. And that's just the reality of the situation. And if we all want to get to a better place around in this world, period, it's going to mean them understanding that and accepting that I have to deal with more challenges and that I am up against a lot more in order to create a life full of purpose and happiness and joy and family and all of the good things that we all want in the world, and economic security, all of those things. That's much harder for me to get than it is for them. And if we want for my experience or anybody else's experience similar to mine or across the spectrum of experiences to have an easier time, then we have to talk about what historically has happened, what we're doing to change that. And that is going to mean them decentering their experience. And that's not an easy thing for them, but it means going in, and it means being vulnerable, and it means listening and learning. And what I am very happy to say, and I love that you said shout out to our founders, is that they've been doing that. They've been doing that. And so we can have the conversations about what it is to create even more equitable, diverse and inclusive environments for our chimers and for our members. And so it's good stuff there. Good stuff.
Look, Eric, we could talk all day. I appreciate you. Consider you a friend of the show. We continue to work together in a variety of ways. And just shout out to you, right? Like, know that you're not by yourself. I see you in this space. People say all the time, I see you, but I actually have your back, right? So like, we need to like catch somebody lacking in the parking lot, like after work. Let me know. Just let me know I can put my gloves on. So like, it's cool. So I got your back.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. And I do appreciate you telling us to have the tougher conversations, even when it might get a little uncomfortable for some in the questions and things like that. I think it's you bringing this, creating this space. And I know how much time and energy it takes. And I know your love for this work and this love for the community, and you stick with it. And I just want to say you're appreciated. You're appreciated for making the spaces for us to have this conversation. Appreciate the spaces you make on Twitter. Appreciate the spaces you make on LinkedIn. I think all of that is good stuff that we need. And I'm grateful for you and grateful for our relationship.
Oh, okay. Let's get up out of here. That's too sweet for me. All right. I'll talk to you later, Erica.
All right. I'll talk to you later. Okay. Bye.
Peace. And we're back. Yo, I want to thank Erica again. Erica, you are a friend of the show, right? You're welcome back anytime. Please feel free to come by. We had a really good time laughing at just a bunch of stuff. Hopefully y'all had a good time listening to it. Again, I can't stress it. Check out living-corporate.com. The website is up right now. It's fi-fi. It's super, super, super hot fire. In fact, sound man, drop some air horns right here. All right, give me some applause. You know what I'm saying? Go crazy. Put some other sound effects in here. I don't know. Put some stuff in here. Like let's turn it up. Like, yo, like this is a monumentous occasion. You know what I'm saying? Like the brand continues to grow, continues to elevate, continues to mature. You know what I mean? Continues to expand. And I want to thank everyone who's been listening. Thank you to the brands working with us on our job boards. We launched something new. Thank you. Shout out to Blind. You know what I'm saying? And shout out to you. All right. Make sure you share this episode, friend, coworker, enemy. You know, maybe share it as like a passive aggressive thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, share it to somebody who thinks they're doing DEI well and they're not, or they think that they're an ally but they're not. You know what I'm saying? Something like that. You know, use this. Feel free to use us in your you know, in your little passive aggressive beefs that you know you have. And make sure to give us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. All right. Till next time, y'all. This has been Zach with Living Corporate. Peace.
Living Corporate is a podcast by Living Corporate LLC. Our logo was designed by David Dawkins. Our theme music was produced by Ken Brown. Additional music production by Antoine Franklin for Musical Elevation. Post-production is handled by Jeremy Jackson. Got a topic suggestion? Email us at livingcorporatepodcast@gmail.com. You can find us online on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and living-corporate.com. Thanks for listening. Stay tuned.
Living Corporate is brought to you by Textio. Today's top talent is everywhere, representing everyone. And our work environment should reflect the level of inclusion to meet that standard. Textio achieves this in building more equitable company cultures through the language we use in our job postings. That culture is formed one hire at a time, making the words we use to reach more diverse candidates all the more important. Our advanced language insights and employer brand content is what drives our mission of inclusion. Through our industry-leading application of artificial intelligence and machine learning, we're able to widen companies' reach in finding and building upon the very diverse talent that empowers a culture of belonging. Every door should be open to every qualified job seeker. Again, that's Textio.